Talk me through a story that you've done that you've been particularly proud of.
I wouldn't call it a story, but recently I interviewed Alistair Campbell,
Right.
which was
And what was he like?
he was a good talker. Got a nice long interview with him. Spoke to him about his time with Tony Blair and what he's doing now. Got some good stuff to play to the rest of the group from him.
Cool. So how did the story play out? What was the aim of it? What did you come at it with?
The aim of the interview was to have 5 minutes to play to the rest of the group, so they could hear something from him they'd never heard before. And he was speaking about his mental health issues, which was interesting. Talking about how Cherie Blair used to fight with him about the amount of time he spent with Tony.
Yeah.
So there was some good stuff in there that perhaps hadn't been heard in the general media before.
What about a story you look back on and you think, I could have done that so much better? So a story that you're not as proud of?
Good question.
I know. So essentially I'm looking for something you've taken some learning from.
I think, well, it wasn't in this country, but something that a huge event during our lifetime was obviously the attacks on the Twin Towers in New York, and that was covered in all sorts of different ways, factually, and then moving on from that, talking to victims and how those attacks affected their lives, people they lost. And I'm not sure if I could have done it better, but I think that's a really interesting one still, because people now are suffering from all sorts of health repercussions. You know, it's over a decade ago now, but people are contracting cancers, and there's all sorts of things you can look into there about how how America and their health services are dealing with that, all because of that event. And I find that quite interesting.
Let's look at a couple of kind of scenarios then. So let's say, for example, we find out that Take That are going to be playing at the Milton Keynes Bowl. Massive story for Heart, obviously. And Ariane comes to me and the news team and says, we'd love to do some stuff on this in breakfast each day of the week. Talk me through the areas we should be covering to reflect this Take That story.
Obviously, I'm imagining that the sales team would try and talk to Take That's promotion team to try and get some tickets.
Yeah, but from a news point of view, what should we
Bearing
be?
in mind that no part of news can be sold or have, commercial in no way can kind of ask for anything to be covered in our bulletin. So you would be going in purely from a news perspective. So how would you make that story interesting for our listeners?
Well, depending whether or not you could get some kind of interview with them, you could talk to them about, how long is it since they performed at the local stadium, why they're excited about their show, how many nights they're going to be performing, and how many tickets are available. Talk about how Heart are going to be involved with that.
Anything else? Okay. We get a call and we're told David Cameron is round the corner. One question with him. What is it?
Why are you in Milton Keynes today?
Okay.
What are you doing here?
The plane
Oh,
spotters.
God.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
The plane spotters up at Luton Airport are there 24 hours a day. We often get a call from them to say something's happened. So you're on desk and you get a call at 7 o'clock in the morning saying that the EasyJet flight to Paris has just plummeted off the end of the runway and burst into flames. Talk me through the process that you do before your next bulletin.
I would get all their details, details of the person calling, write down what their version of events, and then start making some calls to the airport itself, to air traffic control, and then to the police to verify that this is actually true. Then either go down there and find out what's going on, speak to some people, or send another member of the news team there.
Okay.
Um,
At which point would you call your editor?
when I'd checked that it was correct.
At which point would you call LBC? The 24-hour rolling news station.
Immediately.
Okay. So again, you're on desk. It's kind of 10 to 2 in the afternoon. Big flash on Sky News comes up on the telly saying David Beckham killed in car crash. Would that make it into your 2 o'clock bulletin?
What time is it? Sorry, 10?
It's 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
Bear in mind 9/11 happened at 1:46, so this is 10 to 2. Would it make it into your 2 o'clock news?
Yeah.
So what would you say?
We are receiving reports that David Beckham has been killed in a car crash. We don't have any further details at this stage, but we will bring you more when we have concrete information.
How do you feel about localising a national story?
I think it's fantastic.
Why?
Because it gives the listener a kind of, I don't know, it's kind of the bigger purpose. I've seen a few
Okay.
stories recently. I'm trying to think of what were examples of, I know, in London. So there's a big story about, you know, adoption rates in the UK
Yeah.
not being good enough. Several London boroughs are particularly being scrutinised for it. I think it gives people a sense of what's going on, problems within the government, and makes it relevant to their area and easier to understand.
So Madeleine McCann has disappeared. A Dunstable mother of a similar 3-year-old says she's appalled. Is that relevant as a story?
A Dunstable mother's appalled that Madeleine McCann's disappeared.
Yeah. Is that localising a national story?
No.
Sorry, you just said you did think localising a national story.
I know, but I do think localising a national story is a good idea. But I'm sure many mothers would think Madeleine McCann's.
So what about the use of vox pops then in that scenario? Are vox pops a valid tool for a journalist?
Absolutely, because
Why?
it brings local people, makes it more interactive.
So 2 people saying it's a good idea, 2 people saying it's a bad idea.
Yeah, you need to have, you can't have a kind of one-sided, you want a variation.
No, but I'm saying, does that really add anything to a story if you've got these 2 people think it's good, these 2 people think it's bad?
I think it provides a kind of thoughts to bounce off. You hear someone on the radio going, I don't agree, you think,
Yeah.
what's that guy going on about? Or, you know, it definitely gets your mind working.
Really? Just not just lazy?
Not necessarily, no.
I'll apologise in advance for these next 2 questions. Give us some defences against libel. Too soon?
Defence against libel?
It depends whether or not it's in the public interest, which is another debate in itself, really. It depends on the scenario. And
Okay, give me another one. Okay. Who's the Chancellor of Germany?
Angela Merkel,
And the President of France?
Sarkozy,
And who won X Factor last year?
Matt Cardle.
Wow. Round of applause.